Hello and welcome to the Crooked Letter Sports Podcast, a show about Mississippi sports and the folks who play them. I'm Tyler Cleveland, joined as always by my co-host and dad, Rick Cleveland of Mississippi Today. This is a special Friday edition of the show. We are getting post-game comments from Rick after Ole Miss's crushing 31-27 defeat at the hands of the Miami Hurricanes in a game I think more than lived up to the hype. Dad, I think you'd agree last night. Have you recovered yet?
I'm working on about 3 hours sleep, buddy. But yeah, I'm recovered. There's sometimes you watch something like this and then you sit down to write about it and you say, "Oh my God, I'm not good enough to do this."
I think I said that to you at the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, well, that's that kind of how I felt last night. The Ole Miss lost the game, but they sure didn't lose their dignity or the respect of anybody who watched it.
Yeah, I technically, yes, they lost the game. I would argue Miami won the game.
Well, that's what my headline says on my column this morning. It wasn't a case of Ole Miss losing as much as it was Miami winning. I mean, they made the plays. The game was decided on third down. Ole Miss was 2 of 10 on third down conversions. Miami was 11 of 19 on third down and 2 of 2 on fourth down. So on the plays where you had to make them, Miami made them. Ole Miss didn't.
The fourth downs has absolutely killed them. I mean, they had a chance a couple times to get stops that would have changed the game. But I thought a lot of things, all things considered, a lot of things went Ole Miss's way. I mean, they had the turnover, whereas Ole Miss didn't turn it over. They got the interception of Carson Beck on the tip pass. Miami had a slew of penalties up front. I mean, my goodness, the pre-snap penalties for Miami were, as we talked last night, I mean, we were texting back and forth during the game, and I think it was about halfway through the first quarter, I texted you like, uh-oh, I mean, it was clear that Miami was a lot stronger than Ole Miss was. I'll say that.
Yeah, but Ole Miss somehow made adjustments to account for Miami's physical superiority up front. I'm not Newt Rockney. I don't know exactly what they did, but they just fought harder. Miami kept the football for 20 of the game's first 23 minutes.
It was crazy.
Ole Miss had negative 1 yard of offense in the first quarter. And yet, on the last play of the game, it's a throw into the end zone that, frankly, pass interference could have been called.
Yeah, I think a lot of Rebel fans would have been yelling for that. I mean, it looked like he tackled him. I know he got his head around, but I mean, if you turn your head around towards the ball as you're tackling somebody to the ground before the ball gets there, I think that's still technically interference, I think.
It wasn't just that. It was on the way to that corner of the end zone. He tugged at both the front and the back of the Ole Miss player's jersey.
Yeah, they're not going to call that in that situation, though. I mean, I wanted them to because I didn't want the season to end. And at that point in the game, though, I mean, Ole Miss looked pretty unstoppable offensively. I mean, they were just – Trinidad Chambliss was moving it up and down the field despite, not really having a serious run game threat, because not only were they not getting a push, but the guy who could make plays if there's not a push was out with a hamstring, or usually used mainly as a decoy, I guess. Talking about Kewan Lacey, who had that 73-yard touchdown run in the second quarter, and then I guess pulled a hammy on the way and tried to go.
Looked like he tweaked it at about the 10-yard line. Tried to slow down, and then he saw the guy over his shoulder and had to speed up again, which I'm sure didn't help. But, Tyler, I wrote in my column, God, I guess it was about 2 this morning, your time, about the scene at the end of the game, after the game had ended, where Lacey and Trinidad were kind of trudging off the field with their arms around each other, and they get into the tunnel. And there to greet them was Ray Lewis, the Pro Football Hall of Fame linebacker and
I've heard of him.
former Miami star, who you would have thought would have been in the Miami locker room, but instead he was standing outside the Ole Miss locker room to congratulate them on their effort. And I mean, here's a guy, he might be the greatest competitor in football history, and he recognizes courage and valor when he sees it. And he was outside the Ole Miss locker room.
Well, that's very cool. And Ray's always been pretty fiery. And I think Ray definitely recognizes courage and effort, because I don't know anybody who played
with more
with more fearlessness. And yeah, Dad, I think I think I got a moment. It was when Ole Miss threw, I guess when Chambliss threw the touchdown pass in the fourth quarter to give Ole Miss the lead. I turned to my buddy I was watching the game with and just said, in no uncertain terms, no matter how this comes out, this has got to make you proud if you're an Ole Miss fan. I mean, after the first half, I thought that it might go the other way. I mean, I thought they might lose by 2 or 3 touchdowns. That's how it was going. I mean, I couldn't believe the score was as close as it was. But, they come back and they figure some things out offensively, and defensively they get a couple of stops, and Georgia misses a field goal, and you're thinking, oh, my God, here we go. But Miami, I feel like Miami was the better team.
I wrote that. I think Miami, on this night, was the better team. They were physically stronger, and particularly that offensive line. I was down there on the field before the game, and as you know, I've been to a whole lot of NFL games, been to a whole lot of Super Bowls. I've never seen an offensive line any bigger than those guys. And a shout out to the Miami left tackle, who is the only Mississippian on the Hurricanes roster, Markel Bell, who has now played 15 games this season, played almost every minute of every game, and has not allowed a sack. He didn't allow one last night either. He just swallows people.
That's an incredible stat.
6'9", 345 pounds, and can move, man.
Man, what did you think about? Because I'm going in. I had kind of been underwhelmed by Carson Beck and the Miami quarterback, and I thought, especially early in the game, he was completing a high percentage of passes. They weren't really asking him to do much. But, as the game went on, I mean, especially those 2 fourth quarter touchdown drives, man, he really played well.
Yeah, he made a couple plays with his feet, which I wasn't expecting. He made the game-winning play with his feet. Yeah. You know what? I think some credit goes there to Shannon Dawson, who we've seen before in Mississippi, first at Millsaps and then at Southern Miss. He's the Miami offensive coordinator. And I think he's made Carson Beck better than he was at Georgia. He was at Georgia, he was prone to, when people got in his face, to throw one to the other team. He had one interception last night, but like you say, it was deflected at the line. And instead of panicking under duress, he either took a short sack or made a couple yards or threw the ball away,
Well, he didn't take many sacks. I know that.
I think Ole Miss had 4 sacks.
Did they really?
Yeah. 2 back-to-back.
Well, I mean, it felt like every time an Ole Miss defender had a ball carrier dead to rights, it was every single play that it looked like it was like yes, no. I mean, they ended up gaining 4 or 5 yards even when they had them 2 or 3 yards in the backfield. I thought the tackling not so good.
But Tyler, those 2 backs for Miami,
really good.
Mark Fletcher, who weighs 225, and boy, his thighs are like tree trunks, and then his backup, Tremar Brown, is terrific. And how about that 18-year-old freshman? Supposed to be a senior in high school right now, Malachi Tony.
Yeah, that dude is I mean, they just couldn't get him on. They just couldn't. He just kept squirting. It was like Darren Sproles. I mean, he just couldn't get hands on him.
He reminded me of Dexter McCluster.
But yeah, if people out there watching Ole Miss this year, what was their kryptonite? Their kryptonite is Miami, 51 carries for 191 yards, 3.7 yards a carry that you can't stop. That was it. I mean, they held the ball forever. And they only made one real bad mistake offensively in the game. And it wasn't really, like you said, it was a batted pass or the interception. But other than that, I thought they played almost a perfect game offensively.
Yeah, I'll be left with, for however long I live, I'll be left with two images of that game. And one was Trinidad and Lacey consoling each other coming off the field. And the other will be of Miami running the ball up the middle, Ole Miss making contact, and then the whole pile still moving 10 yards down the field.
Yeah, it did happen a couple of times.
At least 2 times.
Yeah. Before we move on, I just wanted to ask you, in the stadium before the game, were you surprised at how many Ole Miss? I mean, they just kept talking about it on the broadcast about it was, it was a decidedly Ole Miss crowd, a lot of red in the stadium. You could tell early in the game when Ole Miss was on defense, it got way louder than it was when Ole Miss had the ball. Were you surprised at how well Ole Miss traveled to this game? And can you confirm what I already know, that there were it was, 60-40, 70-30?
Well, the stadium, they said they announced the crowd at 67,000. Keith Carter, the splendid Ole Miss athletic director who's done such a terrific job, told me that he thought there were over 30,000 Ole Miss fans there from what they can tell from the way tickets were distributed. So yeah, they traveled. And funny moment before the game, I'm down there on the field talking to a good friend, John Miller, who's the Ole Miss administrative coach. And we turned around and we were looking up into that crowd, and John was shaking his head, and he looked at me and he said, "Man, there's a lot of maxed out credit cards up there."
That's so funny and true, because, man, those last minute Southwest flights to Phoenix were, whew.
And the hotel prices are not very chummy either. This team captured the hearts of Ole Miss people, and frankly, a lot of people who aren't Ole Miss people.
Yeah,
they terrific stuff.
Yeah, it was a fun season, fun game last night. I know you're looking forward to a super fun red eye out of Phoenix tonight.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna have any trouble sleeping on an airplane for once. But we hear it's become almost a cliche term, grit, when describing football players and football teams. But man, this Ole Miss team was ate up with grit.
Yeah. Well, immediately after the game, I had a buddy call me and start talking about which pieces are coming back and which ones are, and I was like, man, let's just bask in the moment for a second here. Because, they may be good again next year. But, this team, it felt special. And so we appreciate you taking the time to hop on with us. I know you're running on fumes, and it's too wet to play golf, so I'm sure you're just bereft.
I'll be okay. I was trying to figure out where the energy was going to come from if Ole Miss somehow won the game and was headed to Miami, but I'd have figured it out. I don't know where the Ole Miss energy would have come from, because, brother, they left everything out there.
I know, man. I don't know how many times you can summon it like that, but, I mean, they did.
And they were, you could see that some of them were rolling off the field and in a roller cast, thing. I mean, they were beat up at the end of that game. Of course, Miami was beat up too.
Miami's defense was dropping like flies. I don't know who's going to play in the national championship for them. I did want to mention that, before we close this out. I mean, I'm a believer. I think Miami's got every bit of chance to beat Indiana. They seem to be very similar.
Well, if they play Indiana, I'm not counting Oregon out, but if I had to pick right now, I would still say that Indiana's been this team at the end of the season, and they hadn't slacked off any, and they would be my pick because that quarterback's pretty special too. But yeah, it's going to be a great national championship game, whether it's Oregon or Indiana. I just, as a Mississippian, I would have loved to have seen Ole Miss in it.
Yeah. Well, the kid from Oregon may be a better NFL prospect, but for my money, I'll take Trinidad Chambliss any day. And I wish that the Heisman Trophy voting had taken place after all of this, and I feel like he definitely would have got that invite to New York. He should have anyway, but he would have gotten it had the vote been now, when the rest of the country has now watched him play in 2 primetime huge games where he was so clearly far and away the star. I mean,
yeah. It's like his high school basketball coach said, you just can't wipe that smile away. It's there.
Well, here's hoping he gets his waiver. Dad, that's about it. We got to wrap it up. Thank you for doing this morning, and thank you to our listeners for listening to the podcast and following this great story this season. We'll be back next week, I guess, to talk about basketball. I don't know.
Tyler, we can promise people we are finally going to start talk a little bit about basketball.
I mean, we do what we can. We're eating up with this, and we're eating up with football as it is, and to have a story this sweet, you can't pass that up. But yes, we'll be back next week to talk some basketball, some hoops, and I guess preview the national championship, and we'll know who's in it.
All right, buddy. You take care.
All right. Enjoy your flight.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Remember, you can keep up with all of Rick's writings over at MississippiToday.org. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks.